Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. We're starting things out looking at the sun in 94 angstroms. We saw a large C-class flare, about a C7, 20 minutes into the day here on November 4th. Right there you can see that flare happening. It was a C7 and not quite an M-class flare. Don't rule out the possibility for more larger flares coming from Sunspot 2781. Although the magnetic fields have stayed quite stable over the past 24 hours. Other interesting stuff to talk about today includes a 10.7 centimeter radial flux burst where it went from 83 to 98, and it is associated with that flare. And some more interesting stuff to cover too. Let's get to it. By the way, we are still expecting a coronal mass ejection, a little bit more of a coronal mass ejection. Now this little one you see here, you can see a little bit of ejecta, pretty minor and pretty southward directed from the Earth's perspective. This is at Lagrange point 5, and Earth would be out in this direction from stereo A. And this area right here, that's too much plasma to be sustained. So that's either going to collapse or it's going to eject. That's just the way it works. The radial flux is at 83, I think. Again, we did see a burst. Okay, it's at 88. So there you go. We saw an increase in the radial flux. For you new viewers, the radial flux is solar coronal radio emissions. And they are very highly correlated with sunspot number. And we put up both graphs there, sunspot number and radial flux. So we're actually way up here. You know, the highest levels we've seen since 2017. And that burst actually brought us to the highest level for a moment that we'd seen since 2016 in March. So an interesting burst. And of course, we've got some lovely Helio Viewer movies for you. Let's get to it. First to 131 angstroms. And this, like the 94 angstroms, takes more images per minute. It takes 10 per minute instead of only 2 images. Great view of that C-class solar flare. If there was any ejecta that came out during that, it wasn't significant. Next, we're going to show you the magnetic fields in animated glory. And there you have the past 24 of the magnetic fields, and you can see they're quite stable here. The leading umbra is about the size of the Earth's diameter, give or take. Counting the penumbra, it's like 3 times the Earth's diameter. The trailing umbra, it gained a little bit of coherence last night and then lost it pretty quickly. Here it is in 304 angstroms. I would note that I can see some filaments down here. Another great view of that C7 flare coming up. And lastly, we'll look at 171 angstroms. I think perhaps the 131 angstroms might be the most spectacular here. Let's see what 171 looks like. And this is one of the spectral states of ionized iron. Actually, some great detail of that solar flare. Great detail. And we've moved on to the Smash Light segment. This is where I talk about whatever I want, and I hope the place doesn't start on fire. Although at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I have nothing to say about this, except Here's your USA Today map. And it may not be a map that you're too pleased with. Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia, and Alaska still undecided. By the way, Alaska has 3 electoral votes. And let's speed it up and scroll the list while I remain silent on this subject. Yeah, I've got nothing to say. Although you may consider reading the scrolling marquee at the bottom of the screen. I try to change it daily to include something like, breaking news, you're a douche, or something like that. Breaking news, get your head out of your you-know-what. Anyway, there is the full run. By the way, thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Thanks for fighting tyranny, patrons, by paying us to create the content. Our patrons are responsible for this content continuing to exist, continuing to remain free and publicly visible. Consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/smashamash. Yes, the channel's monetized. No, we don't make very much money. We practically make nothing from Google AdSense, and it's totally not intentional. It's totally not a shadow ban. And YouTube totally does not promote channels that tell outright lies and pay them tens of thousands of dollars a month to see Nibiru and lens flare and to see spaceships and badly focused camera images of clouds and so on. Well done, YouTube. By the way, I still say big tech will pay for misleading its shareholders. Somebody who's not misleading their shareholders are we at smashamash.com. Check out our links. By the way, the Amazon affiliate link is gone. So while there's still a link there, it's not going to lead you anyplace. Oh, no, it's completely gone. Okay, great. So we've severed ties with Amazon because of their pathetic customer service, or I should say client service, because we were trying to refer business to them, and they resisted it twice, and Smash staff said that they can whoosh, stick it. Please visit the other links, such as the Smash Forum, smAsho Store, and the other Smash Store. Perhaps pick up some merch. Today's featured merch is the Make America Not Suck Again in black. For all of you Antifa members out there, Make America Not Suck Again. It's up to you. The shirt is nonpartisan. Pick one up. It's not going to expire. It's got our website on it. And check out the graphics. It's quite nice. I've got one. Smash staff's got one. Thanks to everybody who's purchased merch. Here's the full line at the smAsho store. Again, links to all of that at smashamash.com. All things matter. Were you aware? Yes, all things matter. Yes, it's true. Mesons, bosons, all sorts of things. By the way, if you don't follow Awaken with JT, is it JT? Awaken with JP, I apologize. One of the funniest guys on YouTube, one of the best YouTube channels out there. Here's a clip from one of his latest videos on what to do if your side loses the election.
Speaking of which, because we're unwilling to accept defeat now that we've been defeated, we'll be creating as much civil unrest as possible.
The video's funny, trust me. If you enjoy the content on YouTube, don't forget to press like and subscribe over there. Share on your social media. And we've got all kinds of different content here. Yesterday we actually did a lengthy live stream. We've got a bunch of playlists there. Perhaps subscribe to those as well. Yeah. YouTube.com/smashamash. Thanks to all of our subscribers over there. We're also on BitChute, bitchute.com/smashamash. Gained a couple subscribers over there. Thanks to everybody over there. We are streaming live currently to Twitch. It's twitch.tv/smashamash because the live streaming platform is so good. And here ends today's Smash Lights. It was extra light because, frankly, I don't have the stomach for it. Next, moving on to the cosmology segment and not vomiting on cosmic rays, We see an uptick in cosmic rays at the Apatity neutron monitor here over the past 10 days. Also a similar uptick at Barentsburg neutron monitor. So despite solar activity ramping up, we see cosmic ray flux ramping up as well. Is it because the relationship between cosmic ray flux and solar activity is not understood? Well, yes, entirely. And I'm not going to get into it in depth today, as we've incorporated the cosmology segment into the daily space weather video. But there is a reason why cosmic ray flux doesn't directly correlate with sunspot number. The Athens neutron monitor looking flat over the past 30 days. Next, Mexico City. An uptick at Mexico City over the past 2 weeks. And lastly, Oulu, Finland. This is the one featured on spaceweather.com, by the way. Small uptick over the past week at Apatity. And by the way, we still haven't reached the cosmic ray flux levels that occurred in 2010 and 2011. Anybody who's telling you otherwise is either ignorant or lying to you on purpose to help to increase their own funding. Next, looking at DOMC Antarctica to see a similar uptick over the past week or so, although flat over the past 30 days. Monitor cosmic rays yourself by looking up links to cosmic ray data. You'll get this site. I like it. It's convenient. By the way, X3, Cygnus X3, just the brightest intrinsically visible object in the Milky Way galaxy, has come out of its quiescent state, and we saw one of the tallest bursts here, one of the largest, most significant bursts of X-rays that we've seen for a long time. This one is way up here. And while that isn't a sustained X-ray flux, it is interesting. Do you think Cygnus X3 is coming off of its quiescent state? If you want to monitor it yourself, check out the Neil Gorell Swift Observatory. It's an X-ray monitoring system that monitors about 1,030 known objects. You won't find every newest object on here, but for instance, if you want to look up Sagittarius A stars, transients, type in SGR space A, you get Sagittarius A star. You can even link to Simbad directly from here. It'll put the object in there. I guess it doesn't recognize Sagittarius A star for some reason. Let's do another example here. How about the Crab pulsar? There are the transients from Crab. It's number 182. And the Crab pulsar is a very consistent X-ray source. It's even used to calibrate X-ray telescopes. And if you're not familiar with the Crab, here it is on Aladdin. There's the Crab Nebula. And in the center somewhere is the Crab pulsar. Probably looks better if you view it on X-rays. There's the Crab pulsar in X-ray, courtesy of the XMM Newton. Again, if you want to monitor this stuff yourself, those are all X-ray fluxes, by the way. We're looking at high energy photons at the Swift Bat Hard X-ray monitor. There's also a cosmology forum at the smashomash.com/forum. That's smashomash.com/forum. You can link to it at smashomash.com. And there's that forum. It's got a couple of pinned posts like the most. We've got to unpin that October contest. And here ends today's cosmology segment. And since we talk about the sun daily, that's why we talk about cosmology, because the sun is the Rosetta Stone to all cosmology. Without understanding the way the sun does what the sun does, it is impossible to understand what's going on with all of those stars that are scrolling behind me there. And it affects all physical sciences, everything from geology to astrophysics. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind, we've seen a steady ramp up here over the past 14 hours. Looks like the leading edge of a coronal hole wind stream, perhaps a weak one. I would expect to see this solar wind density continue to rise a little bit here throughout the day, as this one's taking its good old time. Current solar wind density 5.15 rather, 5.03 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind velocity very low, below 300, 291 kilometers a second. KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, currently at 1. Here's a geospace magnetosphere movie, and we see extended size plasmaspheres in the space weather modeling framework model. You can see it looks like a second double layer forming in there. And those empty spots that you see there, folks, that's the plasmasphere. That is where electrons corral a bunch of solar plasma. And there's all kinds of chemical reactions going on in there. It's the plasmasphere. It's part of the earthly magnetic shield. And at the edges of those are where the Van Allen belts are located. So pretty weak magnetosphere here, although not as weak as yesterday. Solar wind velocity still very low. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations, looking at a little closer to home here. And both of these are 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. Not a lot going on there. Not a lot of solar induction forced magnetism. And here's that C7 flare. It happened at 20 minutes into the day today on November 5th at 0:20. Since then, we've seen another C-class flare, which actually kicked off while I did show prep. If you get up before dawn, you may see Venus and the moon in the same sky. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week. As Jupiter moves past Saturn in this scary, spooky alignment that everybody was forecasting a 9 magnitude earthquake. Whoops, looks like it didn't happen. And by the way, folks, the sun does actually wobble toward these gas giants, especially when they line up like that, because Jupiter and Saturn are by far the two most massive planets in the solar system. Besides that, not a lot really happened, did it? Next, looking at the Gong 2 data here, part of the National Sunspot Observatory, we're looking at the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. Now, the sun's always blasting out protons, and those protons get oriented to one of the sun's poloidal fields. The south one here shown in red, north one shown in green. And don't be surprised to suddenly see the Earth's potential field force line in the green. Why? It's all because of Sunspot 2781. I won't go deep in depth into it, but there's the data. Keep in mind it's 1 hour and 16 minutes old and can suddenly change, and you can see it suddenly changing. Here's the line of sight field plot, a different perspective on essentially the same data. And you can see the B field being yanked down toward that sunspot. And lastly, looking at the coronal potential field force plot. And this is showing you the magnetism of just the solar corona. And it's really all over the place right now. Keep in mind this one shows closed potential field force lines in pink, open ones in black, and coronal hole potential field force lines in purple. Let's look at the power of the electron flux, the electron densities here. That's what voltage really is. Here's the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron flux as reported by Solon.info. And by the way, Solon.info has updated a bunch of stuff here. If you go to Solon.info/solar, you'll see a bunch of stuff was updated November 3rd, November 1st, November 1st. Doing things like comparing cycle 24 and 25. Cycle 25 is slightly ahead of cycle 24, very slightly ahead of cycle 24 in terms of activity. And that's a good thing. We're hoping for a bigger solar cycle, but reporting on whatever happens objectively. Here's the 3-day chart of the greater than or equal to 2 mega electron volt electron flux. And we just bordered warning levels yesterday. Nothing to write home about there. And I would expect this to be a similar day here for you new viewers. The M's and N's mean noon and midnight. Midnight and noon, as measured by the GOES 16, which it does so at the F2 ionosphere layer. Here's a visualization of the whole air column, and we see continued anomalies here over North America and Canada, and we've seen this repeatedly for the past several days, for about a week or so, maybe 10 days. Otherwise, everything's pretty normal there. Some anomalies over Antarctica also, it looks like. Right in there. Pretty minor. The ones over the North American area, northern Canada and the US, are much more significant. And by the way, I've measured some of these electron flux these high density electron flux areas by having crazy GPS bike rides. Here's just one slice of the atmosphere. It's the ionosphere layer. I've heard people say that this is associated with earthquakes. I don't see any evidence to that, but I would be interested in reading about it. Leave a comment if you have some insight into this theory that the ionosphere has something to do with earthquakes. This is why we look for anomalies every day, and we don't really see any here. That's a 24-hour ionosphere movie. A little bit charged up here over southern South America at nighttime. Not particularly anomalous. That latest image is from 10 o'clock Universal Time. Just bear with me one moment. I got to check the life of the stream. It looks like everything is fine now, Dave. Next, we're going to look at earthquakes. And here's the past 24 hours of earthquakes. Nothing over a 5.3 magnitude kicked off. There's a deep one in the Caribbean near Martinique. Another deep quake at Timor-Leste at over 420 kilometers depth. Really, it's a lull in earthquakes, folks. And volcanoes. Here at volcanodiscovery.com, we see Kluchevskoy producing some lava flows here. Great image there of Kluchevskoy. I'm not going to try to pronounce any of that stuff. Manam has also been erupting down in Papua New Guinea. And this is actually mentioning a story that we covered a few days ago. Flying drones to take chemical analyses of the air above the volcano is a great technique. It tells you if there's water vapor or carbon dioxide or sulfur or whatever. So Manam also erupting here. It doesn't say how much. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 200, 20,000 foot ash plume there. Volcanic ashes dispersed at Sangay, Sabancaya exploding, 30,000 foot ash plume there. So that's an uptick at Sabancaya. In fact, that's the largest ash plume I think we've ever reported on Sabancaya. And another one, Barren Island, has now been added to the list. It's producing a 5,000 foot ash plume. And there's a location of that. Baratang Island is the location of that one. Never heard of it. I'm not a leading volcanologist. Next, looking at what is it? It's the nullschool.net Jetstream setup. We're looking at the 250 hectopascal winds, which gives us insight into where the jet streams are, and they are all over the place. Check out this bend here, 180-degree bend, creating a low pressure zone here. It's actually a bit of an anticyclone, perhaps. Let's take a look at the surface winds. And there are the surface winds. Not really an anticyclone. Actually, there is a bit of an anticyclone here. It's over the UK. Shout out to all of our Euro viewers and our viewers from all around the world. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Here are the jet streams of the Eastern world. We got to get this thing moving. Next, looking at windy.com's pressure maps. Why? Because we want to know what the pressure is. It gives us insight into the weather. And yes, I'm a real meteorology nerd, folks. If you're wondering how I became a meteorology nerd, it all has to do with cycling. I wanted to know how to forecast the weather really precisely. There's where we expect pressure cells to be at 12 noon tomorrow, right there. And please leave a comment if you'd like to name this anticyclone here in the northern Pacific. After a CNN anchor, we've been naming anticyclones on the channel. It's one of my hobbies. And I'm going to need control. Oh, man. Thanks. Next, looking at lightningmaps.org to see lots of lightning over the Caribbean here. And I don't know if this is... There we go. It's refreshed. Here's the lightning mapper, the GOES lightning mapper. And you can see quite a lot of Caribbean lightning once again here. East of the Bahamas and so on. Here's a U.S. Doppler Radar map, part of our value-added services. Looks like some scattered showers over Florida and some heavy rains over Washington. Has your parade been rained on? Now, I would note here on the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Shortwave Radiation Map, look at all the low clouds. They've been persistent over the Western Atlantic as well as the Gulf of Mexico. Low clouds, by the way, are associated with cosmic ray flux. And low clouds have an effect on climate. Also, low clouds have the ability to make the whole planet colder for thousands of years, we think. And the mechanism of low clouds is they reflect sunlight in the daytime, increasing the Earth's albedo effect, and they hold in heat at nighttime. So you end up with colder days and warmer nights. Next, looking at the water vapor map. And we'll zoom in on this area of dry, massive air here over Minnesota. We got this. It looks like Minnesota's getting hit with a blackjack right now. Check it out. Yowzers. It's a massive pressure gradient. If you're on an aircraft flying over that path, expect to feel like you've hit a wall when you hit that dry, massive air. And yes, if you're wondering, dry air, due to the molecular mass of N2, atmospheric nitrogen, being higher than the molecular mass of water vapor. Yes, water vapor makes the atmosphere less dense. Thanks for flying American Smashways, by the way. Keep your head and arms inside the smash plane at all times. We're showing you bonus features. First, we're going to show you the Colorized Magnetogram. Then we're going to show you the Intensitygram. And then we're going to show you the 1700 angstroms 48-hour SDO video to show you the entire sequence of Sunspot 2781. So here's the Colorized Magnetogram. These areas are not sunspots, they're just minor active regions. There is the magnetic field scenario going on for Sunspot 2781. Here's me vanishing. And we've got significant magnetic field mixing there. Here is the latest image of Sunspot 2781 in the Intensitygram. So there are the fields. Let me move that over a little bit. Intensitygram, fields. Intensitygram, fields. And there's that 1700 angstroms video. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink it. If you do, don't drive. No matter how much the government encourages you to drink, only do it if you want to. And if you do, certainly don't drive. Maybe just don't drive, period. And I am biased when it comes to driving because, alas, I am a professional. In any case, we're out. May that solar wind be at your back. You know what, COVID? How about if you just stay there forever? What about that, COVID? I'm thinking maybe you can just stay there forever, and it'll be fine. I'm still not scared, but hey, stop! Cut it out! Cut it out! Stop! But if you keep, you are made in China, 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 China.